Picture this, a top-tier fashion magazine's entire editorial staff poised to walk out the door, over the mere prospect of featuring a first lady on its cover. It sounds like a plot twist from a political satire, yet on a recent special edition of Gutfeld, this theatrical threat unfolded in real time. As the cameras rolled, the host and her guests turned what might have been a dry media story into a searing critique of workplace tantrums, media integrity, and America's widening culture war. By the end of the segment, the consensus was clear. Quitting your dream job to protest a magazine cover is not just dramatic, it's downright ridiculous. The show opened with Timpf subbing for Greg Gutfeld, delivering a rapid-fire barrage of jokes that set the stage for the main event. She skewered Donald Trump's feud with Seth Meyers, quipping that Trump must have missed the punniest host in conservative circles, Jimmy Fila, and ticked through a parade of absurd news bites. From Burning Man's infamous orgy dome succumbing to a windstorm to a super PAC that raised $1 million for Andrew Cuomo, and prompted Cuomo to grab his own ass in celebration, the tone was playful yet pointed. Timpf's comedic precision primed the audience to see the Vanity Fair story through the lens of skepticism rather than solemn outrage. Then came the bombshell. Vanity Fair's incoming editor was reportedly keen on featuring Melania Trump on the US cover, and at least one unnamed staffer vowed to resign in protest. "I will walk out the bleep door, and half my staff will follow me," the anonymous editor told a British tabloid. Their rallying cry? They refused to normalize this despot and his wife. But whispers from other employees undercut the drama. Quitting a prestigious gig over a single cover seemed unlikely, even farcical. Timpf seized on that gap between threat and follow-through, labeling the revolt dumb, and noting that even Greg Gutfeld's own contract stall over a second helicopter was a taller order. With the gauntlet thrown, the panel pounced. Timpf argued that more than 77 million Americans had voted for Trump and that any outlet ignoring their interests risked bad journalism, and a kind of un-American snub. She reminded viewers that Vanity Fair had previously spotlighted other first ladies. Michelle Obama on its Mexico edition in 2017 and Jill Biden twice on its US cover, so the idea of a political litmus test for spouses of sitting presidents was as inconsistent as it was self-defeating. The suggestion that a few editors' personal disgust should dictate the magazine's entire editorial direction struck her as a textbook case of self-obsession masquerading as principle. From there, the conversation bloomed into a freewheeling guest segment featuring comedian Jamie Lissow, Fox News contributor Tom Shilyu, former NBC sideline reporter Michelle Tafoya, and ex-wrestler-turned-author Tyrus. Lissow zeroed in on cold, hard economics. A Melania cover would sell more copies than almost any other issue in Vanity Fair's history, and quitting over projected sales gains made no strategic sense. Shilyu, ever the pragmatist, calculated that even a few hundred walkouts would still leave ample hands to cut, paste, and publish. Tafoya reminded viewers that Melania herself had downplayed the importance of magazine covers, suggesting there were more important things on her agenda, while Tyrus debunked the staffer's claim of Trump being a despot, pointing out that the term implies absolute power exercised cruelly, and that wasn't a label fitting this first lady or her husband. As the laughter subsided, a broader narrative emerged. Timpf and her guests painted a portrait of media echo chambers gone awry, where ideological purity tests lead to self-inflicted audience hemorrhages. They argued that refusing to work with people you dislike is part and parcel of any profession. If you never learn to share the table with adversaries, you end up starved for growth and perspectives. In a culture increasingly weary of polarization, the idea that a magazine could thrive by narrowing its focus to only one political lane struck them as not only short-sighted but perilous to the spirit of inclusive journalism. The segment also touched on the historical precedent that put the threatened walkout into sharper relief. Past administrations saw their first ladies grace the covers of leading magazines without igniting newsroom mutinies. Nancy Reagan appeared on Time in 1981, Barbara Bush in 1989, and more recently Michelle Obama and Jill Biden each strapped into those glossy spotlights. None of those covers triggered mass resignations or moral crusades, because in the world of high-profile editorial work, balance and breadth often trump personal preferences. As the panel pointed out, magazines thrive on featuring whoever shapes the cultural moment, whether hero or villain, and readers reward that openness with subscriptions, clicks, and newsstand buys. By the close of the show, the verdict was unanimous. A genuine editor might disagree with a subject's politics, but they wouldn't let personal distaste hijack an entire magazine's mission. If a staffer feels so passionately opposed, the professional course is simple: do the work, voice your objections, then move on when your term ends, or if you must, resign quietly on your own terms. Dramatic walkouts over covers amount to little more than theatrical stunts, delivering headlines for everyone else and empty exit interviews for those who depart. In under 10 minutes of airtime, Gutfeld's special edition transformed what could have been a mere media footnote into a trenchant lesson on professional duty and the perils of moral grandstanding. The threatened Vanity Fair mutiny, while headline-grabbing, ultimately served as a cautionary tale. When workplace rhetoric outpaces real-world consequences, you end up with a spectacle rather than substantive change. And as for Vanity Fair, the path forward seems clear. Feature Melania Trump if you choose, welcome the attention, and let those with rigid objections take their leave. In the end, it's the readers who matter most, not the posture of a handful of anonymous complainers.